Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And I sat down and I turned the camera on and I realized that I had forgotten my hat, which is in the kitchen. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna have to go without in this video. So we're gonna deal with a little bit of hat hair right now. The boys are wrestling right in front of me. Boo Radley is wanting to get into a wrestling deal with come on, Tucker's over here. You wanna come up on that? You wanna come up here, Boo Radley? Boo Radley's like, he's like pawing like this, like, help me up, Dad. Come here. Come on, sweetheart. Here you go. We're gonna read some meditations and we're gonna have lots of fun, aren't we? He said, is this our last video today so that we can play and have fun and then we don't have to be quiet? Yes, this is our last video for the day, Boo Radley. So we're gonna read some meditations. I brought the same 4 books that I usually bring, but I was sent a new copy of Melody Beatty's Journey to the Heart, Daily Meditations on the Path of Freeing Your Soul, because my other one was like ripped and falling apart. Was that not so nice? That's so awesome. So, since I was sent it, and it's new, let's read from that. It is August 12th today. Let's go in here and see what it has to say for August 12th. Okay, August 12th, practice forgiveness. He was an old man sitting on the corner bench. I don't know why we just keep on forgiving our brothers and sisters, he said, looking at the people walking by. I suppose it's because when we do, we really forgive ourselves. Is there someone we're judging, censoring? If we look more closely, we'll see that when we blame others, we're chastising ourselves as well. If we're honest, really honest, we can see that often what upsets us is something similar to what we ourselves do. Other people can be mirrors of our own behavior. Yes, there are times when another person does something absolutely outrageous, and we can stand there, hands on hips, saying, I've been wronged. I can't understand how anyone could behave that way. But often, if we're honest, we really can't understand. We have behaved that way too. Practice forgiveness. Judgment without forgiveness causes us to feel isolated, separate, and apart. Causes us to judge ourselves in the same way. Discover how much better you feel when you forgive others. Find out how much better you feel when you forgive yourself. I love the whole thought process and discussion of the power of forgiveness. I actually don't think we talk that much about it, you know, and I think that we don't really understand forgiveness sometimes, you know. And I was watching an episode of Oprah. It was like an Oprah's, you know, aha moment, Soulful Sunday or something. And she was talking on there about her definition that she learned of forgiveness. They are having at it today, the dogs. They're going crazy. And in there, and I've read this tons of times in my videos, but she said that forgiveness is something to the effect of, forgiveness is accepting that the past happened the way that it happened. Not that it is okay what happened, but that it happened. And now what are we going to do with it so that we're not held hostage by it? And I think it's such a beautiful definition, because I think that what most people misunderstand, right, is that when you forgive somebody, you're not necessarily forgiving them for them, right? It's not like you're letting that person off the hook or they're getting away with something. I think that there's that misunderstanding, right? That's what forgiveness is. And we live in a society now where there's so many apologies. People are making apologies for everything, right? I mean, if you follow my other channel, my drama channel, you know we're talking about apologies a lot over there. And then people will say, well, it's not like, you know, like who is forgiving them, and did this person forgive them, and did that person forgive them? And it's like, forgiveness is really about the act of freeing yourself from being held hostage to an action from the past, you know, because the resentments are unfulfilled expectations. So resentment is when you have an expectation that somebody or something should have acted a way, or something should have turned out a way that it didn't, you know? And so we're upset about it and we're angry about it, you know? Or if somebody we feel like has done us wrong, you know, something to that effect. And I think forgiveness really on a personal level is freeing ourselves, can be very, very powerful. You know, there have been moments in my life where my sponsor or a close friend, my best friend, or my husband or somebody will say, you know, like, are you willing to forgive them? And it's like, you know, I'm willing to forgive them. I'm able to forgive them. I'm not there yet. Like, there's some work that I need to do, you know, and I also need to take a look and see what my part was in that off as well, you know. And sometimes I don't have a part, you know. Sometimes I don't have a part in how somebody else wronged me, or, you know, whatever. And like in recovery, we always take a look at our part in that, right? But I don't know if this one hair is swooping up, but sometimes I don't have a part in that. The fact is that sometimes people have just wronged me or wronged you, right? And I think that we allow ourselves to get like ate up with that. And you know, that's when you talk about people renting space in your head for free, if you've ever heard that saying before, where you're so consumed by what happened. It's like, I think typically like when you go through a breakup, right? Like this is like a lot of times in a breakup, a romantic breakup, when the person you feel like really did you wrong, like maybe they cheated on you, or maybe they didn't give you the attention they needed, or maybe they broke up with you through text, or I don't know, maybe their family wasn't nice to you, or maybe like, you know, you didn't feel like you had any closure to the relationship, or whatever it is, okay? There's 5,000 things that we could say, right? But I think often it's like we become so consumed with that. You know, I've gone through a lot of breakups where 6 months later I was, you guys, my lord, they are wrestling and stuff over here. There's often times where like 6 months later, you know, like I'm still thinking about something and they have like totally moved on, right? And even though like maybe I was the one that was broken up with, you know what I mean? And I'm still like ate up with it and consumed, and I'm like, but they did this and they did that, and I'm talking to all my friends and I'm driving my friends crazy, and they're like, I don't want to hear about it anymore, you know, like, God, I can't listen to this anymore, right? But, and then, because that's what's happened is I've allowed myself to be held hostage by what has happened to me, and I've allowed myself to not move through it, to the other side, right? Because like, I'm not a believer in moving on. I'm a believer that you have to move through your pain and through your feelings and just really allow yourself to feel it, right? But when you're at that point where it's been some time, and you really, really feel wronged, it's like you've told everybody in the world how wronged you are. You've told that person, you've let them, you know, and on and on and on. And it's like, okay, but you're really the one whose life is being affected by it. You're the one who is paying for what happened. So forgiveness of that person is really saying, okay, let's take a look at what you did. Okay, what you did was not okay, but I can accept the fact that it happened. Now what am I going to do about it? And am I going to continue to go on for the next 10 years and talk about it and talk about how wrong you did me? Because I'm going to be the one that has a life ruined over that. Or am I going to look at that and say, you know what, I forgive you. Maybe you weren't thinking right when you did that, or maybe you had other motives and things that I'm not aware of, or whatever. I don't know what was going on with you at that time, but I need to allow myself to move on, and the only way that I know how to do that is to forgive you and to say, you know what, you're forgiven, move on. And sometimes people don't even care. Sometimes people go, I'm not looking for forgiveness for you, but that's where forgiveness is for yourself, right? I know this is such a corny example to use, but if you ever watch the TV show The Hills, there was an end of a season, and it was with Lauren Conrad, LC, and Heidi Montag, and Heidi was asking Lauren to forgive her, and Lauren looked at her and she said, I can forgive you, but now I want to forget you. And, you know, I think that's actually a really powerful sentiment, that just because you forgive somebody doesn't mean that that's like entrance back into your life. I have forgiven many people in my life that they are not in my life today. I don't want them in my life. They're toxic to my life. They have hurt me in my life, and I have learned, because I'm somebody that like sometimes like I have to be like, you know, like I have to learn a lesson 5, 6, 8 times like before I finally learn it. You know, like when I talk about lessons will be repeated until they are learned, I'm that person that lessons are repeated for, because I don't often like learn on the first time, you know? So I've had to really learn that in life, that, you know, sometimes like I need to let go of holding on to this anger and this resentment, because I'm really the one that's going to pay for that in the long run, you know? And I don't necessarily let people right back in. Now, if it's a close friend of mine, I'm not talking about like, you know, I'm not talking about something like, I'm just making something up, but like, let's say if my best friend and I are excited about going to do something and she cancels on me at the last second, which she's never done, so this is totally made up. But let's just say if she did, and then she's like, I'm so sorry. Like, would I forgive her of that? And yes, like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about bigger issue things. And some issues, like, we probably need to seek professional help for, you know, that are so deep. But I'm talking more about, like, breakups or situations that might happen, like, in a work environment, or, you know, with, like, where a friend really has done you wrong or something, and it's like, man, like, I just can't, if it's something that you can't see past, then one of the suggestions, you know, like I've always done, is I write it out. Like I write out and I look at it on paper, because sometimes when I see it on paper, like there's such a power in writing something out. I mean, I talk about inventory and evaluation over here because it's something that I practice in my life, but there is so much power in writing something out and seeing on paper. You can't look away from that, you know, and then seeing how somebody really treated you. Well, there's a lot that I can forgive, you know? But that doesn't mean that it takes away from it happening. And unless somebody shows me that they have grown and that they have learned from what has happened, no, they're not back in my life. That's a privilege. I mean, today, like when I went through my mom's death and I realized what a privilege it is to stand by somebody when they pass, and what I learned in that moment was that to be in somebody's life is a privilege. Our family and our friends and the people that we choose to allow into our lives, the fact that you guys allow me to be part of your life by watching my videos, that's a privilege. People don't understand that, right? So when people take you for granted, what they're saying is they don't realize that it's a privilege that you have allowed them to be in your life. Remember that. It's important. Don't ever minimize your worth. Okay? And the people that you allow in your life, you're allowing them in because it's a privilege for them to be there and be part and experience all of those things in their life, right? So no, I don't just let people right back into my life. Sometimes, like, you know, I need to see that they've grown. And when I say grown, I mean like emotionally developed and learned from how they treated me. And I've had people forgive me too, and I'm not right back on good graces where I was before. They have to see, wow, like, you know, like Peter has learned, he's changed, he isn't the same person that he is before, you know what I mean? And so, and there's been situations like that with all of the people in my life. You know, I'm not like this perfect human being. I have to learn as well. And by learning, that means that people are gonna, I hope, forgive me from time to time. And there's been people that have allowed me back in their lives, and there's been people that haven't. And I've learned from those things. I've learned from both experiences. I've learned that when people allow me back in their life, don't take them for granted. And I've learned that when people don't want me back in their life, that it's okay to set boundaries and don't take people for granted, you know? So I think it's really, really important that we learn that the power of forgiveness is strong. It's huge. But I think the most valuable lesson to me through all of this is I want every single person to know out there that you are important. Like you have to have self-worth. Like you have to realize, like, I'm born, I live, I die, and what I put in the middle of that, who I put in the middle of that, that is mine, okay? Whoever you are out there, I don't know, like whatever your name is, you that's watching this, okay? On the other side right now, you know, say your name out loud. My name is Peter Monn. There will only be one of me that lives my life on this earth. Like, that's valuable. I'm valuable. You're valuable. And you have to remember that. And so when we forgive people, what we're saying is, okay, like, I have looked at what happened and I forgive you for that. You know, and that's coming from a loving and compassionate place of your heart, where you can see that maybe somebody hurt you out of pain, or maybe somebody hurt you out of unknowing, you know, or maybe somebody was, you know, like has mental health issues, or maybe, and that's not an excuse, and addiction's not an excuse, okay? But maybe they still did those things, you know, and you can maybe understand it. Sometimes, and when I'm trying to get to a point of forgiveness, I pray for things like understanding. I pray for things like, you know, like, God, help me understand the situation more. And you don't have to be a religious, I'm not a religious person, but you don't have to be a spiritual person or have a higher power. You know, you can just sit there and think on it and think, like, let me understand this a little bit more. Let me look at what the situation is. Can I understand why they may have acted this way? And maybe they're just an a-hole, you know? Like, maybe that's it. Maybe they're just not a good person, and they just don't treat people well, right? Well, can you forgive them for that? Can you forgive them that there are just some SHI people out there that don't know any better, and they're disregarding people? And isn't that sad? Isn't that sad that they don't realize the power of having a real human relationship with somebody? Because see, when I can see that in somebody, and I can see that person doesn't really realize the power of human connection, that makes me sad, because they're going to go through their whole life, that one life that we just talked about, where you say, hi, I'm Peter Monn and there's only one of me. They're going to go through that whole life without ever having any real human connections unless they learn. And that makes me sad. And yes, I can forgive somebody for that, because they don't know any better. They really don't, you know? And I don't want to be connected to pain that's equated to somebody that doesn't care that they did it to me in the first place. You know, my mother taught me, don't value the opinion of those people you don't value to begin with. Meaning that if you don't value somebody, if somebody doesn't mean something to you, why do you care what they say to you? Like, because we had this long conversation way back in the day about people saying mean things to me when I was growing up. She didn't know it at the time, but this was when I was older and she said that to me, you know? And that's a good example, you know, like I can look back on the people that I went to school with and them being mean to me and bullying me, and I realized they were younger and they were attention seeking and they didn't realize how much they hurt me. And I can look at that with love and compassion, and I can say, you know what, I hope today that they wouldn't want their children to be treated the same way, because many of them have said that to me. I have children today and I would never want them treated that way. See, they learned the lesson. So why would I want to be held hostage to that pain of the past? I don't want to. I want to live the best life that I have possible, you know? And I don't really have a lot of anger and resentments towards people today. Do you hear these dogs? They are like, Boo Radley is licking Tucker's back, and Tucker's like, What's going on, guys? You want to see? This is so funny. So anyway, you know, I don't want to be held to the hostage of like the past actions that have happened to me. I don't really have anger today in my heart towards any people. I really don't. Like, you know, it's just like I try to let that stuff go. And if I do, I talk to my sponsor about it, you know, and I say, what do I need to do with this? You know, we'll take a look at it, like why I feel that way. And like the book said, you know, with mirroring behaviors, often sometimes something that I don't like in somebody else is something that I see in myself. And then I need to take a look at that. You know, then I do need to take a look at that and go, wow, like that's like a big, huge mirror they're holding up to my face. But I think the most important thing I do want you to know is that you're valuable, your life has meaning, and the people that you allow in your life, like they're there because you allow them to be there, and you are in other people's lives because you guys are cracking me up. You are in other people's lives because they allow you to be there as well. And that is called having human connection, and that is more powerful than anything in this world. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.